Hello everyone, Patrice Juandano again here. Today I'm going to talk about the important parts of a research project. Now that you are ready to begin your research project, let me remind you several important parts that you need to attend to, that you need to pay attention to in your research. Okay, let's dive into my PowerPoint presentation.
So everyone, this is the topic for today, important parts of a research. First of all, you need to find a problem, right? You need to state the problem statement or research objectives. These are the objectives, the things that you want to attain, that you want to achieve, that you want to answer through your research. Now, how can you find problems? Yeah, you can find problems through observation, through your personal observation, through your experiences, and you can also read some journal articles and others research reports. And you can identify what are still problematic, what are the areas that you can still research, what are the areas that you can find the answers to. Some of the research probably leave some areas that have not been answered or some questions that have not been answered, and it's your turn to provide answers, to make an effort to present the answers to those areas. Okay, so that's how you find problems. Okay, and then once you decide on the problems, then you have to state the research problems or research objectives. Now, the research objectives should be researchable. What is researchable? Researchable means that it must be able to be answered through research. So you cannot state a research objective which goes like this. What is the meaning of emoticon? Now, that is not a researchable question because you can simply look up the word emoticon in a dictionary or an encyclopedia and you'll have the answer without doing any research. And so it is obviously not a good research objective. Yeah. Second is that it must be able to be finished or to be accomplished within your time limitation. It must be feasible to be done. You cannot state a research objective which goes like this. Uh, to improve the um, to improve the spirituality of the young generation in Indonesia. No, that's too big. That's too big. You just cannot do it through a single research because it's a very complex action to improve the spiritual condition of the young generations in Indonesia. Wow, that's so big. It's a very big undertaking. You just cannot do it even though you have done your research. People doubt that you can achieve that objective, and so that objective is not a researchable objective. Okay, and third one is that in your chapter one, early in your chapter one, you have to define your key terms. Now, the key terms are the major concepts of your topic. Say, for example, your topic is about the development of um, pragmatic ability among students of senior high school. Then your major concepts will be pragmatics. What is pragmatics? And then what is pragmatic ability? Yeah, so those are major concepts that you can find by looking again at your topic. Yeah, in your topic, your title will suggest what key terms are to be defined, what key terms are to be put under the definitions of key terms. Okay, so you need to define the key terms. You need to define the important concepts that are implied in your topic. Okay, yeah. Now comes the relevant theories and the previous studies. When you do research, you need to have a strong theoretical background, strong knowledge of the theories that are relevant to your topic. You also have to know the previous studies, the previous work that have been accomplished, that have been done by other people before you do. And that's previous studies. Yeah. You have to know this, the relevant theories and the previous studies. Now, again, theories are implied in your research topic or research title. Say, coming back again to my previous example, the development of pragmatic ability of high school students in Indonesia, then the relevant theories will be uh, theories of pragmatics. What is theories of pragmatics? And then also theories of pragmatic ability. Yeah. If necessary, you can also find some closely related concepts uh, that is suggested by the links between pragmatic ability and pragmatic development. For example, culture. Yeah. Culture is associated with pragmatic ability, and then so you have to also include the theories of culture or cross-cultural understanding. Okay, so the theories are implied in your research topic or in your research title. Look again into your research topic and research title, and then you can find you can derive from that what theories are relevant to your topic. Now, what are the use of theories? Why do we need theories? Theories are used to explain your findings, on and or predict the future aspects in the light or on the basis of your findings. So say you have found something about the pragmatic ability of senior high school students, then you have to explain this in the light of the theories of pragmatic development, in the light of the theories of pragmatic ability. So you explain your findings using the theories that you have discussed. Now that is the right way of doing a thesis. That is the right way of discussing the findings. You have to discuss your findings in relation with theories that you have discussed. Also, in the basis of your findings, you can predict what is the future like as far as pragmatic ability is concerned. You can say that according to the theories, these students will have such and such pragmatic ability if they interact longer with English speaking culture, for example. So the theories are used to predict the future situation. Okay. Yeah, that's the use of theories. One is to explain your findings, and second is to predict the possible circumstance or the possible situation in the future. Yeah. Why you need to review the previous studies? Yes, it's important because it positions or it places your research among other research or other studies. Is your research simply a replication of what other people have done? Or is it a refinement? Is it an enhancement? Because you include more variables than what other research have included. Yeah, so the review of the previous studies puts your research, puts your topic among the constellation of other research, other previous studies. Yeah, so that's important. That's also important to let the readers know where your research, where your findings stand in relation to other findings in the same area or in the same topic. Yeah. So that's why you have to relate them to your research. Again, I emphasize this again and again. When you discuss your findings, you have to, or when you discuss the previous studies, you have to relate them to your own research. Is your research a simple replication, or is your research different in one or many ways, or in some ways from the previous research? Maybe your research involves a lot more variables or different subjects or different contexts, the same variables but uh, different contexts. Yeah, so that can be brought up in a discussion relating the previous studies with your own research topic. Okay. Now we come to the method. In method, you have to elaborate on the research design. You have to let the readers know what is your research design. Research design is basically a plan for gathering the data and then analyzing the data. That's what research design is all about. Yeah, so when you tell your readers your research design, they will have an idea how you are going to collect the data and how you are going to analyze it. So you can decide on your research design. Is it going to be experimental or case study or a survey? Is it going to be correlational study? You correlate two variables or more. Is it going to be a mixed method, uh, dealing with quantitative analysis and then followed up with qualitative analysis? Is it going to be exploratory? You are going to explore an issue deeply and then you're going to describe the results in a lengthy discussion, in a long discussion, long and deep discussion about the situation that you are looking at. Is it going to be descriptive, just describe a certain community, a certain ability of a certain community? Yeah, so you have to decide your research design. Again, research design is a plan for gathering the data and analyzing the data. And then you have also to mention the respondents or the subjects or the sources of your data. It can be human beings, it can be inanimate objects like films, movies, symbols, short stories, yeah. And how you are going to select them. Is it going to be purposive? If it is purposive, then you have to have a criterion or a set of criteria by which you can select your respondents. Yeah. Is it going to be random sampling? Remember, random sampling is the sampling in which all members of the population have equal chance of being selected as the sample. Yeah, so again, you have to you have to describe your respondents and the subjects or the sources of the data, of your data. Yeah. And then you have to explain your data collection. So it's going to be questionnaires. Are you going to distribute questionnaires to your respondents? Are you going to test them? Are you going to observe them with observation guideline? Or a combination of these? So you have to spell out the plan for collecting your data. Or are you going to simply look at the movie for several hours and noting down points of interest there? Yeah. So you have to spell this out again in under data collection. Okay. And then comes the data analysis. How are you going to analyze the data? Is it going to be a statistical analysis? So once you have got the score and the data, you feed it into SPSS or Minitab or Excel or whatever software is used for analyzing the data? Or are you going to interpret the data according to your own interpretation through coding? Now, this is a well-known method for doing exploratory study, a qualitative study. You are going to look into the data and then you're going to interpret it again according to your own belief, according to your own perspective, and you do this through coding. Yeah. Again, let me bring up the discussion of the difference between quantitative data and qualitative data. Quantitative is the data that are in the form of numbers, in the form of percentage scores, yeah, numbers, numerical expressions, figures. Qualitative data, on the other hand, are in the form of sentences or utterances or symbols, yeah, or written thoughts, tape scripts, pictures, yeah, all which are not numerical expressions or numbers. That's qualitative data. Okay. Yes. Now let me highlight some common mistakes that, at least according to my experience, some students have committed in the past. Yeah. So some students thought that the books and other information that they read in the library are data. No, they are not. They are not the data. They are just supporting means with which they can interpret the data, or they can analyze the data, or they can find some arguments for explaining the data. But they are not the data themselves. Yeah, they are just supporting elements. The data will come from the object or the people or the movies that you watch, or the books that the novels that you read. That's where the data come from. But here, if you say that you go to the library and you read journals there, they are not data. Okay. And then second one is make sure your analysis answers your problem statements or your research objectives. So once you step into chapter 4, in which you discuss the analysis and the findings, make sure that every analysis is addressed or is directed to each of the research objectives that you have stated in your chapter 1. If possible, if necessary, you rewrite the objectives so that you won't miss them. Yeah. For example, objective number 1 is blah blah blah, and then here is the analysis and here is the finding. Research objective number 2 is blah blah blah, and this is the analysis and this is the finding. Yeah. So you will not deviate from your research objectives, and suddenly you find yourself explaining something that was not stated in your research objective. Yeah, and that's you are lost then. Yeah. Or you can probably you leave a question unanswered because you simply forget, you lose the track of your own research objectives. And so when your final draft is ready, your advisors suddenly find out that your research objective number 2 has not been answered. Of course, this is to be avoided. Do not do this. Make sure that all your research objectives are answered. Okay. Now, in discussing the findings, relate them to the theories and previous studies that you have discussed earlier. Again, this is also a common mistake among some of my students. They just discuss the findings and that's all. Yeah. Of course, this is not a good practice. They should have discussed the findings and relate them to the theories that they have discussed in the previous chapter. Also, they have to relate the findings in the light of the previous studies that they have discussed in chapter 2. Yeah, and so in this way, the whole research project or the whole research report seems coherent. Everything is linked to uh, another part. One part is linked to another part in a meaningful fashion, and the readers can get a complete picture, a complete overall picture of your research in relation to the theories and the previous studies. And that's the best practice. Okay. Yeah. So avoid these common mistakes. Make sure that you do not commit the same mistakes. Yeah. Okay, keep calm and do your research. Stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.